Hello everyone! Earlier I made a video on the topic of separating ethics and morality, and there are some aspects of this that I'd like to expand upon. In the first video I made an argument for separating the two, and here I will address the reasons I believe they've been treated as identical. In a nutshell, ethics objectively defines permissible and impermissible behavior, whereas morality subjectively defines behavior in terms of beauty and ugliness. When the two are not distinguished, the subjective nature of morality is utilized to characterize ethics as subjective, while the objective nature of ethics is utilized to characterize morality as objective. I will illustrate this by borrowing the political trichotomy. The libertarian point can be said to exist in a paradigm where ethics and morality are held distinct. This creates a neutral space between good, the fulfillment of duties that one has accepted voluntarily, and evil, which are NAP violations. And this affords the individuals access to the full range of permissible behavior regardless of its moral character. So the other 2 points of the trichotomy, the authoritarian left and authoritarian right, each have distinct methods of redefining this neutral space as either good or evil, which ultimately culminates in the loss of liberty. Now, when I refer to left and right in this video, I'm specifically referring to the authoritarian right and left in the context of a political trichotomy. So please do not confuse this with the one-dimensional political spectrum. Also note that the first step each of these groups take in order to eliminate liberty is identical. First, you have to collapse ethics and morality into one thing. So the authoritarian left can be understood as the archetype that is lawful but amoral. This group engages in ethical outsourcing to the state. Think of lawyers, politicians, the media, or a gold-digging ex-wife that takes as much alimony as she can get her hands on legally. This is the class of people who do exactly as much as they can get away with and who look to the law to define that which is good or evil. When asked why something is wrong, their immediate, most common justification is that it's illegal. The degree to which a leftist deviates from this archetype is the degree to which they will have some vestige of a scruple, which will undoubtedly they'll prefer to see enshrined in law, and as this is their supreme ethical and moral validation. These are the same people who promote conventional definitions of morality as being defined by society. They mistake the subjective nature of their personal morals as part of ethics, and this is why you see legislation such as the Civil Rights Act. They see racial discrimination not as morally ugly behavior, but as an infringement on the rights of others that warrants state intervention. This positive conception of rights is their form of original sin, and this opens the door to their threat narrative. That which is neutral is either redefined as a duty or as a threat, and thus the space for liberty is gradually erased. Now, the authoritarian right can be understood as the archetype that is moral but not lawful. This group engages in moral outsourcing to religion. The purest extreme would be exemplified by cults. Now, given the violent nature of the state, the right tends to make concessions to the state. Because they see their religion as the source of their ethics, they imprint the objective nature of ethics onto morality. And this is why the right has an ends justify the means attitude toward the state. Anything and everything the state does which advantages their religion is seen as good, and victimless moral matters are as important as ethical matters. This is why Republicans will support the war on drugs and the Defense of Marriage Act, yet do nothing to fight taxation or the welfare state. The original sin narrative comes from a denial of property rights. Humans are owned by their creator, not by themselves. And once the first faith-based claim is allowed at the table, any attempt to introduce logic later is arbitrary, which results in the reckless proliferation of threat narratives based fundamentally on magical thinking. This is why religion is capable of motivating people to commit heinously unethical atrocities. Ethics and morality are seen as identical, so the moral is empowered to subvert the ethical. Now, although these methods are somewhat different, the result is ultimately the same. That which is defined as good expands. doing good becomes mandatory, and therefore enforceable. Original sin narratives allow those on the left and the right to impose duties onto people involuntarily. On the other hand, any ugly behavior that would normally be permissible is plugged into a threat narrative, which essentially serves to redefine it as a violation of the non-aggression principle. However, in doing so, they are actually affirming the objectivity of libertarian ethics. They are affirming that one must have a duty in order for their good actions to be mandatory, and they are affirming that one must violate the non-aggression principle in order to justify self-defense. Thanks for listening.